Hey everybody, in today's video I wanted to go over my Rolling Slam Boneshatter warrior build guide. Currently we're focusing on Smith of Kitava, but I think you can augment this build to be used for Titan and Warbringer if you wanted to. I've got a link to the Mobalytics if you want. Also got a quick POB. It's going to only take you through basically Act 1 to 4. There's no endgame set up for it yet, but I have been playing this build a lot. In the end game, I swap off of Boneshatter and prioritize Earthquake a little bit more, but Rolling Slam is still what I use to kill most bosses in the game. So instead of reading through all this text, we can scroll down to the strengths and weaknesses of this build. As you can see, on the strength side, if you go Smith, while you're leveling, you just get 75 all elemental res, as well as a bunch of fizz taken as fire. It's incredibly handy if you're new to Path of Exile 2, new to the warrior class, and you just want to ignore all of the difficulty that comes with gearing a character, capping all your resistances, etc., and just focus on doing damage. What this lets you do is take all of your passive points on the tree, throw them into damage. In my opinion, it makes for a really good sense of progression, because at any point, if you do get gear that increases your cold res by itself, you can swap off of any of those ascendancies and put them into anything else from the body armor portion of the Smith of Kitava ascendancy. So at any point in time, you're kind of juggling these points around. Feels really good to do. The other strengths are I focused on getting Giant's Blood as early as possible. Basically, Act 3 is where you can unlock it, and at that point, you can kind of have enough strength to keep it going. The items that you get going into Act 4 do tend to have more strength than you're going to have at the time that you get them. So either you have to put more points into strength on your passive tree, you either have to have gear with strength on it, or you want to path down to the bottom of the passive tree to get access to the polymathy attributes wheel, as well as reduced attribute requirements. But when you're in Act 3, it should be pretty easy to hit about 151 strength for the leadened Great Hammer. You're going to be doing a ton of damage. It's got great wave clear with the Boneshatter setup, and then it's got great single target with Rolling Slam. The only issue that I hit while running through and doing this playthrough was that it's very, very weapon dependent. We cleared most of Act 2 with our Forge Maul from Act 1. And by the end of it, because of how bosses are set up in PoE 2, there are two Titan-esque bosses. So they're really large, kind of half torsos popping out of the ground. Those kinds of bosses are very hard to break their armor, and they're very hard to get stunned, which is what this build excels at. Basically, once you stun and have armor broken on these bosses, you just do a bunch of damage with Rolling Slam. So towards the end of Act 2, because those bosses kind of exist, you're going to want to keep your weapon upgraded. You're going to want to try to get the most cutting edge, like a Temple Maul before you hit any of these bosses, etc. It holds true for the rest of the game, but when you get Giant's Blood in Act 3, it doesn't matter as much. And then going into Act 4, the weapons you have access to are going to be really strong, especially if you can get plus melee skill gems on the suffix, where Hammer of the Gods could potentially one-shot these bosses, depending on what level you are. So that's enough about, strengths, weaknesses, etc. Let's actually look at some gameplay, and we're going to tie that to what your skills are going to be at any point throughout the campaign. So starting in Act 1, you're going to be using Boneshatter and Rolling Slam together. What that's going to look like is something like this. You use the first hit of Rolling Slam and then immediately interrupt it with Boneshatter, just blowing everything on screen up. This is a really common and popular playstyle. The reason why I wanted to do a new build guide is because I feel like not many people are using Rolling Slam for single target, and instead either moving on to Perfect Strike or the new meta, which is Shield Wall. I just wanted to make it clear that you can still just use Rolling Slam in order to boss kill throughout the campaign. So right off the bat, Impact Shockwave is incredible on Boneshatter. It does a bunch more damage if you use it. And then Armour Break is really important, in my opinion, to put in as early as Act 1. It's the most consistent way for you to break armor while you're mapping or while you're going through the zones in order to keep Scavenged Plating stacks up. I do have Armour Breaker here that you could possibly use when you're trying to boss and try to break armor on bosses. It's not as consistent as you want it to be while you go through the acts, depending on what level it is, depending on what kind of boss you're fighting. It's going to take way too many hits in order for Armour Break to get any real value. So you're probably going to ignore that. but I just left it there as an option. What we're supporting Rolling Slam within Act 1 is Fire Attunement as well as Fist of War. Fire Attunement is just because there's not many very good options at level 1. Technically, we could go, I think it's Concentrated Impact, or basically the decreased area of effect but increased area damage. You could swap that out here as well if you wanted. Either way, they're both around 25% more damage at this point, or 30%. It doesn't really matter. When we're looking at Mace Strike, we have rapid attacks as well as rage. This is where you're going to be gaining rage in Act 1. Eventually, you'll be able to get that through Warcries, but for now, that's the only way to get it. And then on Infernal Cry, we are supporting it with Tireless. So there's a chance where if we use Infernal Cry, we can use Rolling Slam a few extra times empowered. When we're looking at single target with Rolling Slam in Act 1, there's not much to it. You're going to be auto-attacking until you get the boss to be primed for stun. You're then going to Boneshatter into Infernal Cry, empowering your Rolling Slam, and then you're going to knock the boss down. This will phase him. So on a single stun, you're going to be phasing Geonor. Heading into phase 2, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. Auto attack, build some rage up, dodge if you can. And then once he is primed for stun, hit him with the Boneshatter. Use the Infernal Cry to empower Rolling Slam twice, and then just take him out. Normally it takes around 1 to 2 stuns in order to kill these bosses early. Your auto attack is doing a bunch of the heavy lifting, especially if you have a really strong weapon. But you can just spam Rolling Slam if you want. It's also really good at building stun build up on bosses, and then you're just going to take them out real easy. Moving on to Act 2, this is again a very common setup with Boneshatter, which is using Leap Slam. It's the only new ability you're going to care about in Act 2, and you can support it with a Brink. What Brink does is it makes it so that you can't actually stun enemies with the skill, letting you Leap Slam into packs of enemies, priming everything for stun, and then using Boneshatter to wave clear. What that's going to look like is something like this. You're going to Leap Slam in, you're going to see everything be primed for stun, and then you're just going to blow it up with Boneshatter. When we're talking about Act 2 and we're looking at support gems, what changed? We're going to be swapping out Fire Attunement or Concentrated Effect for Aftershock on Rolling Slam. Why? Is because Aftershock is essentially a chance to do double damage. The more Aftershocks we get, the more damage it's going to do to bosses within the time window of when they're heavy stunned. You also get access to Raging Cry for Infernal Cry, and what that allows you to do is keep the rage you generate from your Mace Strike as you Rolling Slam. It gives you a bit of breathing room from when you Mace Strike and then maybe prime the boss to get stunned, Boneshatter into Infernal Cry. You get to keep all that rage and then do, 30% more damage with the Rolling Slam. Looking at the support gems for Act 3, again, at this point, you will have access to Giant's Blood. You're going to be doing a lot more damage dual wielding two-handers, especially on Rolling Slam. At this point, we get access to Fist of War 2, as well as Close Combat. Again, Close Combat could be swapped out for Concentrated Effect if you wanted. Doesn't really matter. You also get access to Life Leech on Boneshatter, which is huge while you're going through your campaign. If you have access to the Lesser Jeweler's Orbs, I would put it on Rolling Slam first and then Boneshatter second. If you have a bunch of excess, Leap Slam is a pretty good option. I think your Mace Strike, towards the end of Act 3, you'll unlock the third socket. It's just depending on what level you are, I think, or maybe like when you clear Act 3 going into Act 4. But just pay attention to see when you unlock this extra socket. And then once we get to Act 4, you will eventually unlock Hammer of the Gods. Hammer of the Gods you can support with Fist of War, Heavy Swing, and then Aftershock. I believe at this point you can also potentially get 4 sockets. I feel like maybe you get 1 or 2, but it just depends on how quickly you're going through the campaign, how many enemies are you killing, how many abysses are you doing, etc. Something I didn't do throughout my playthrough, but you can probably do yourself, is just try Armour Break on your Mace Strike. When you're dual wielding two-handers, your Mace Strike's going to be doing a lot of damage, and taking that damage and turning it into Armour Break instead of using Armour Breaker itself might actually be more efficient. I'm not really sure. Again, I was having difficulty breaking armor on bosses throughout the campaign. It doesn't really matter on too many bosses. On ones with like low armor, it's pretty easy to break and just blow them up. But you're going to kill them anyways, so just figure out what feels good to you and then play through it. The other big update in Act 4 is you get access to Seismic Cry, and what Seismic Cry does is if an enemy is primed for stun or heavy stunned, it empowers your next slam to Aftershock, guaranteed. We're going to support it with Tireless and Raging Cry as well. Once you get to Act 4, you're going to open up a new combo. Instead of just using Infernal Cry, what you do is you get boss primed for stun. You're going to be using Infernal Cry first, then Seismic Cry in order to stun, straight into Rolling Slam, or Hammer of the Gods if you've got it. It's going to be doing a ton of damage against these bosses, making it easy to clear them, one phase them, etc. So yeah, that's going to do it. I did run this Rolling Slam, Boneshatter, Smith live recently. I did 2 live streams, one Acts 1 through 3 in a single go, and then Act 4 after. I was pushing it really fast, for me at least, as in like I was under leveled in almost every single zone. We didn't actually get Hammer of the Gods in Act 4 because we were so under leveled. So it's not a really good example of how you want to play this build. The version that I'm showing off here is something I also ran in hardcore, and it, instead of playing just straight Giant's Blood dual wielding 2-handers, what you can do is use a 1-hander and shields, and then anytime you would normally heavy stun a boss, you just add into your combo a weapon swap. So basically, get the boss to be unstunnable, you're going to want to weapon swap, then Warcry, because you have to weapon swap first in order for your Warcries to empower the correct combination, and then go into the Rolling Slam after that. So what it looks like for Act 4 combination is basically prime a boss for stun, weapon swap, Infernal Cry, Seismic Cry, and then Hammer of the Gods or Rolling Slam. And you're going to be doing a shit ton of damage. You can access weapon swap points if you want, right? So if you're going for a more hardcore play style where you always want to have a shield on when you know you're going to be taking damage, you can use either 1-hander or 2-hander points based on when you have Giant's Blood. You can spec into block, etc. on the tree. It's very strong for SSF as well, because you just get access to so many free stats with the Smith Ascendancy. Overall, the quality of life on this build is really good. This is holding true for 0.3. I don't know what's going to change in 0.4. They might make just everything that we do less damage, meaning that the Ascendancy is going to matter way more in terms of damage done. I'm not sure, but for now, Smith, especially for new players, especially for new warriors, is very strong. It makes gearing super easy. And then if you're somebody who wants to go Giant's Blood as early as possible, it also enables that. Highly recommend you guys try this out. And yeah, if you do, let me know. We put an endgame build out with the Softcore Smith. It was the Slamquake builds. I really liked it for mapping. This is us kind of going back. I played a hardcore Smith. I really focused on either the leveling process or just like the gear progression of a character. That led me to be coming up with the current build that you see here. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this content. When it comes to build guides, I'd much rather do something like this, which is focused on clearing the campaign as opposed to endgame, Giga Farm stuff. But most of the time, I'll be doing at least one of those per league launch. So when 0.4 comes out, again, the first character we'll be playing is probably going to be Softcore Trade. And then we'll swap back into doing the more hardcore SSF stuff as the league progresses, just because that's what keeps me entertained while I play PoE2. Anyways, again, thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe if you like the content, and I will catch you guys in the next one.